Are you looking for a small SUV that's big on space but small on price? Then the GWM Haval Jolyon Luxe might be what you're looking for. The small SUV segment is pretty fierce with its competition, with rivals like the MG ZS and Mitsubishi ASX offering similar specs to this. In this review, we're going to see how it compares and how the Jolyon handles urban life, so stay watching. There are 6 variants for the Jolyon, and the model on test here is second from the bottom, the Luxe model. The drive-away price does position it as the most expensive compared to its rivals, but not by that much. The standard equipment for the Luxe includes synthetic leather upholstery, a 10.25-inch touchscreen multimedia system, heated front seats and an electric driver's seat, but the full specs are in my written review at carsguide.com.au if you need more info. The dimensions of the Jolyon make me feel like it's pushing the small SUV tag because it's quite substantial and well shaped. There's also enough bells and whistles in the design to keep it fresh looking, like the swoopy LED DRLs at the front and the curvy rear with its black spoiler. The interior looks nice and new with interesting features like the E-shifter rotary dial, push button starter and minimalist button panel. The dashboard juts out a little bit too much for my liking, but the tactile accent panels and the big tech screens make this feel much more premium than what the grade level actually suggests. If you're coming from an old car, this is going to feel very luxurious inside. The storage is really good for the class and you get multiple cubbies to choose from, including a shelf underneath the center console, which will fit a small handbag. You also get a sunglasses holder, but sunnies do tend to rattle in it when you store them in there. I like that you get a dedicated phone slot. It's a very handy spot. But although it says you get 2 cup holders, you can't actually fit 2 cups in there side by side. So I'm going to downgrade that one to just one. The multimedia system looks nice and the screen's responsive, but it's not easy to use while on the go. And that's a problem because your climate control is accessed via the menu. I would have preferred a button or knobs and dials for the fan and control speed. That would have been welcome. But you do get wired Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, so that's a plus. The 7-inch digital instrument cluster isn't the best, and some of the text effects actually make it appear blurry. You can't customize it or lighten it, which is a problem because it's already quite dark, especially with sunnies on. And this was a real point of annoyance for me this week. I also really hated having this camera pointing at me all the time. Other cars do have driver monitoring systems, but they're a lot more subtle and not in your face. Whereas this made me feel like I was a part of a Big Brother episode and just made me feel uncomfortable. There's a good variety of charging options up front with 2 USB-A ports, a 12-volt socket and a wireless charging pad. But it would have been nice to have seen a faster USB-C port up here too. Access for the rear row is really good and the room you get back here rivals much larger cars. Seriously fantastic room. The seats are pretty damn hard though, so I'm not sure how you go on a longer trip. Storage and amenities are really good back here. You get 2 mat pockets, 2 drink bottle holders, 2 cup holders, directional air vents and 2 USB-A ports. The boot offers 337 litres of luggage capacity, which was plenty big enough for a big grocery run this week. You get a temporary spare tyre, and while you wouldn't expect it at this grade level, I do miss having a powered tailgate, mainly because the boot lid is pretty heavy to open and close. The Luxe has a 1.5 litre 4-cylinder petrol engine that produces 105 kilowatts of power and 210 newton meters of torque. The Luxe is also a 2-wheel drive and has a 7-speed dual clutch transmission, which isn't always smooth with its gear changing. The Jolyon is let down by its on-road experience because it's just a bit underwhelming and unsophisticated. You really have to put your foot down to get anything out of the engine, and when you do, gear changes happen a little bit too swiftly and it does feel a bit gutless when you're trying to get up to speed on the open road. So, not a great open roader and also not terribly zippy around the city. The accelerator and brakes are pretty touchy and you do get a bit of a bunny hop experience until you get used to them in the city. Once you do though, they're okay. Steering is on the right side of firm though for me, which is good. So it does feel pretty direct and responsive in that respect. Suspension is hard in this model and you do feel all the bumps, but What really bugs me is that it's a really loud cabin, especially on the open road. You get a lot of wind and road noise. So much so that my kid did ask me to repeat myself quite a lot this week. So on the end of a long journey, your senses just feel a little bit battered. One of the redeeming qualities for this car, outside of all the alerts, is that it's got an excellent 360-degree view camera system. You only get a rear parking sensor in this, but it doesn't make much difference because it's a really easy car to park. Really healthy dimensions when it comes to a tight car park. The Haval Jolyon Luxe has an official combined fuel cycle figure of 8.1 litres per 100 kilometres. And based on the 55 litre fuel tank, you should see a theoretical driving range of up to 679 kilometres, which is perfectly respectable for an urban dweller. My real world usage sat at 7.8 litres after doing a pretty healthy mix of open road and urban driving this week, which I thought was a pretty solid result. The Jolyon has a maximum 5-star ANCAP safety rating from testing done in 2022 and has 7 airbags, including a front center airbag. The safety list is pretty long and it scored highly across its individual assessment scores. But I have noticed a theme emerging with this car this week, and that's everything sounds good on paper, but the execution is another matter because the safety features are simply too intrusive and too distracting for daily driving. All the bings and bongs and chimes are annoying enough, but you also get multiple text boxes that pop up asking questions that don't even make sense. Anyway, the full specs are in my detailed written review at carsguide.com.au if you want more info. The Jolyon is offered with an excellent 7-year unlimited kilometre warranty. And you can also get a 5-year cap price servicing program where services average just $310. And that's pretty competitive for the class. The first servicing interval has to occur before 10,000 kilometres, but thereafter servicing intervals are pretty reasonable at every 12 months or 15,000 kilometres, whichever occurs first. The GWM Haval Jolyon Luxe offers affordability in a nice looking package. However, some of its features aren't always well executed, and while it might be cheap to buy, it also feels cheaply made, and that doesn't equate to value in my eyes. But if you are looking for something affordable and you're not fussed with how it gets from A to B, this will more than suffice, which is why it gets the score that's on your screen now. If you're after more details, check out the full review at carsguide.com.au, and I'll see you next week.